There's a Winnie the Pooh meme. What's the hardest thing you've ever done? Ask for help. And I'll tell you, the day I did it in 2017, it was £1,000 telephone. It was something. To get over that hurdle and just let go of the pride, and because I needed that help, and it's not easy. And there's one of the spots in the community where my show comes in, because you got to meet people where they're at. And if the only form of help that somebody is willing to accept is to simply listen to Operation Tango Romeo, then great. It's I hesitate, I choke on the words to say them, but it saved lives. This show is sponsored by shopveteran.ca and the Canadian Legacy Project. Are you a veteran who owns a business? If so, register your business for free on shopveteran.ca, or if you would like to support veteran-owned businesses, be sure to make shopveteran.ca your first stop shop. Thanks, everybody. Hello, all you beautiful souls. Thank you for joining me for another edition of Operation Tango Romeo, the trauma recovery podcast for veterans, first responders, and their families. One of the core things that I accomplish on this show is to bring all the resources to you. I know they're not organized, they're all over the map. But if you scroll long enough, you're going to find everything that you need scattered here and there all over. And if there's somebody who would like to volunteer to help me categorize everything and put it into some kind of spreadsheet, help, that would be great. So today on the show, I'm talking about Homes for Heroes. And I was there in the beginning, having Dave Howard on the show talking about this before they even broke ground on the very first village. So we're going to be talking about that with the new CEO, Brad Field, talking about what it is that they are offering, what it looks like at one of these villages, how many villages they have, et cetera, et cetera. Brad, thank you for making the time to spend with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mark. This is awesome.
Fan-diddly-tastic. So let's talk about you a little bit. These are all volunteer boards and whatnot, and you're already a busy guy just doing life. How did you come across the opportunity to participate with Homes for Heroes, and why did you do it?
Yeah, well, first of all, too, my position is a paid position. I mean, again, granted, it's we work for a charity and so forth. But yeah, no, I've always been a supporter of the veteran community, and for me, it goes back to when I was a teenager. I actually tried to join Canadian Armed Forces. But I had a previous serious car accident where I had shattered vertebrae in my neck and so forth. So they said, yeah, not eligible. So then I tried to join the RCMP, found out I was colorblind. So every time I went to try to serve my country, the door got slammed in my face. But yeah, so then on to serial entrepreneurship. I've been doing business all my life, and private sector predominantly. And I've known Dave for 20 plus years, and a big supporter of what he has done and created Homes for Heroes. And we literally had crossed paths at call it a cocktail, a gathering party, a bunch of local business leaders and so forth. And I hadn't seen Dave in some years, and I was there on the grand opening for Calgary back in 2019 on that cold November day. So yeah, I just wanted to get caught up. Dave, how's it going? How's Homes for Heroes doing? And he's telling me about all their expansion and so forth. He says, "Oh, and we're looking for a new president CEO." And I'm like, "No, you're not. You're done. Stop your looking." And so yeah, I had sold all my private sector companies in Canada and the U.S. and I was kind of looking for another gig. I guess I had kind of tried the retirement thing. Got bored and was looking to do something. And this opportunity just came out of nowhere. And I knew in that microsecond, like literally in a microsecond, I knew that I was going to be that guy. And they stopped their hunt. I interviewed with the board and started immediately. So I'm just over 2 years now into my third year, and super excited, super proud of the work we do. But yeah, that's the short version of how I got here.
And how has it been meeting us, the veteran community. What have you learned over the last 2 years?
Well, first of all, huge honor. What I've learned is every veteran has their own story, their own, their own journey, and some of them, are tough journeys, and some of them are great journeys. And I just got off a call this morning. I do intake interviews with every potential veteran resident that comes into Homes for Heroes. And I always ask, one of my questions is, how was your time in Canadian Armed Forces? Good, bad, indifferent, ugly, and you get different stories about how their time in service was. Did they serve overseas? Were they in combat? Did they never leave the country? And so forth. So everybody's got their own journeys. I love learning, taking the time. I think that if you go into every conversation, every interaction with a human being, let alone a veteran, with an open heart and an open mind, you, it's a blessing, right? It's a real gift for me. It's just been fantastic.
So, what have you learned that surprised you over the last 2 years? Like, is there anything where you're like, oh, I didn't expect that from the community, or nice
Yeah.
surprises, that sort of thing?
Yeah, the one thing that comes to mind, there's a bunch, but thing that comes to mind is the veteran community, on one hand, is fragmented.
Hmm.
There tends to be some inner turmoil within the veteran community, but if an outsider comes in, you guys come together like glue, right? Like you will fight that outer force with a passion. So as much as it's almost like a family. You fight with your brother and sister day in and day out, and so on and so forth. But as soon as that outside person comes into your household, you band together very quickly. And so it's interesting. Obviously, it can be a challenge sometimes because I would be considered an outsider, even though I'm here on behalf of veterans and working on behalf of veterans. I am an outsider. I'm a civilian. So there's times where I'm welcomed with open arms, and then there's times where it's okay. I'm going to have to do some work here because you can see the lack of trust in their eyes and in their actions. So yeah, so that's been a lot. I love the challenge, and I'll say this too: is as much as I get to know our veterans, I try to get to know every veteran that I come in contact with. There's ones that I will never have a relationship with, and it's just and not because I'm a bad guy or they're a bad person. There's just not that connection, or they just don't trust the relationship. So I think I do really well that way. But yeah, there's challenges for sure. The other interesting thing is the demographic of veterans. We serve at Homes for Heroes anywhere as young as 19 years of age, upwards of 80 years of age we've had in our care. And so that was a real surprise, thinking, wow, how did an 80-year-old who probably hasn't served for 50 years, probably, maybe 40, how did they end up in our care, right? Like, and so it is interesting that we have such a large demographic for sure.
Why do you think that there's distrust? Because you're not a veteran. Like, what is it that you? How do you unpack that? How do you describe that lack of trust? What do you think fuels that?
I think again what I've learned, and again it's only my opinion, and it's only 2 years plus. So again, I take everything I say with a grain of salt. I think that a lot of our service members have felt there's a betrayal of trust within the federal government, within Canadian society. I've talked to U.S. veterans as well. They feel the same way. They feel that the country has let them down. They went and served their country, and then in turn, their country turned their back on them in a lot of cases, or when they tried to file for a benefit claim or for help, or they look for help, there was no one there to pick up the call. Right. And so I think that a lot of distrust, whether it's valid or not, that sense of distrust or betrayal is quite prevalent in the veteran community in this day and age. So, again, so when I go in as a non veteran, or I'm running an organization that is supposedly there to serve veterans, they, raise an eyebrow and go, "Are you really here to serve us? What is your motive? What is, why are you doing this?" So yeah, it takes a while to build that trust. So
Well, there's been a lot of examples of civilians putting together a so-called veterans organization that really isn't. And
right,
so they put on a dog and pony show. There's one, I won't say the name of it, we can talk off air, that I've known about for a great long time. And it's starting to come to my attention that they might not actually do anything other than collect money for themselves.
right.
Um, there was a fellow that used to show up at the Calgary Stampede with a booth and present himself as a veteran support organization.
Mhm.
Well, he wasn't. And those things are out there. So
Right.
the troops don't want to feel like they've been taken advantage of. Sure, don't like fakers. There's different types of stolen valor out there. People who pretended that they served, or they exaggerate their service, or there's the sycophant type where, and I know a few of them where they've never served, but they mimic us.
Mm.
So
Right.
they dress like, attempt to talk like us, and it doesn't land because you're not being yourself, you're not being authentic. You didn't you didn't go through the pain and the sacrifice to become one of us. Therefore, if you're trying to talk like one of us, it misses. It's
Right.
not real, it's not authentic. You It can't be pulled off. So I
Right.
suggest nobody
Yeah.
ever even attempts it.
Yeah.
And the truth is that the most hardcore tier one door kickers that I know are, they don't have that veteran vibe to them. Like they're not trying. They're not putting on a show. They're not dressed in the garb,
Right.
and letting everybody know that they meet within the first 5 seconds what their career was. They don't try to
Right.
impress anybody.
Yeah.
The people with the most full and complete careers are the most humble and unassuming uh, within our community. Then those on the other end of the spectrum,
Yeah.
they're the ones that are trying to get the extra medals for doing nothing. They just want to
Right.
fluff up their rack. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's a complex community.
Yeah, it is. And we see that, within the veterans that we service, you can suss out pretty quick. I mean, obviously we have access to their information, their service record and so forth, because we get permission from them. In order to serve them, we need access to information. So we can file claims and so forth on their behalf. But you wouldn't even need that information actually to suss out real players opposed to people that served in combat, opposed to people that never left the base. And I don't want to minimize a veteran that never served in
Oh
combat
no,
opposed to one.
service is service for sure.
Service is service,
And
100%.
and one isn't more than the other, but they are different.
Right.
The
Yeah.
different doesn't mean
Different.
more than.
Yes. Yeah, but the ones that potentially have never left Canada, served on a base, and so forth, and they start talking about their time overseas or their combat experience, you're like, people who brag about it typically didn't do it at all, right? And there's no humility there. So you're right. There's fakers, right? Even within the veteran community, but also the civilian community wanting to connect with the veteran community. Yeah, we've run into a lot of those too as well. But
And it goes the other
like,
way. I know several people that try to minimize their service. For
right,
instance, I was in Croatia in '94 in the middle of the Civil War, and it wasn't Afghanistan. Was there combat? Every now and then. I didn't
yeah,
see any of it. I was shot at, and lots of events happened.
yeah,
Am I a combat veteran? That depends who you talk to.
mm,
But it was a combat zone, but I
yeah,
don't have any trigger time. So
right,
you're kind of in this middle spot where you're looking for a label for yourself and like, well, what do I deserve as far as labels or claims? And I know people that 30 years later, and they're still trying to um, find pride in what they did, because
Sure.
they think that they are less than, or their service was less than, and they're just feeling a little insecure that like, what type of soldier am I? Am I a
Right.
combat veteran, or am I a peacekeeping veteran? Well, it's the same thing.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
there's no division from my standpoint.
No. No, and you're right there because our obviously the '90s, the UN peacekeeping missions, former Yugoslavia, and so forth. We cross paths, and they are probably the one group that is in purgatory the most,
Mm.
right? Because to your point, you never pulled the trigger, but if you're dodging bullets, that says a lot, right? And not to mention what you witnessed. I have a very close personal friend that served in the mid '90s, and he still suffers today from PTSD, not because he was being shot at, because of the stuff that he witnessed and had to stand by and watch and do nothing about.
There's two types of PTSD, and of all people, Jordan Peterson has it wrong. And I'm not saying that to slight the man, not at all,
Yeah,
but he's just mistaken. There's moral injury, and then there's the PTSD, the neurological injury, which is encoded in terror. So the type that is encoded in terror, basically fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. The catastrophic event happens, your body responds. PTSD is when it doesn't go back to normal. When
right,
the kettle boils over and doesn't stop boiling over, or the throttle, the the accelerator goes right to the floor and stays on the floor, never comes off again. The throttle gets stuck on full. That's classical post-traumatic stress injury. So your nervous system just doesn't ever reset and come back to calm. And because of that, that's what I had. And as a result, the nightmares for the rest of my life, which I've only got a grip on over the last few years, and I'm 55, turning 56 this summer.
right,
And so that's a long time with horrific nightmares, all because the cortisol is still pumping when I'm trying to sleep. Um, so that's the throttle getting stuck on full. The moral injury, there's two different types of moral injury. There's the things that I did that I'm ashamed of, and then there's just the horrific stuff that I've witnessed that lets me know that the devil is in fact real. And whether you
right.
take that literally or figuratively is irrelevant. Call it evil if you don't want to call it the devil.
Yeah,
But I've seen it, and I've seen the footprints of the devil, and that is something that I don't even talk about with my wife. There's a few bits of knowledge that I have that I don't repeat. Every now and then I get together with the guys and they talk about those things. It's like, oh, dude, it's called
yeah,
war porn. But just the evil that people are capable of,
yeah,
witnessing that firsthand, the slaughter of innocent people, like we're talking, there were villages where they killed everybody and everything, man, woman, child, baby, grandma, even the dogs. And then they all got thrown into a pit. So
yeah,
that happened all over the country. It happened. Uh, multiple locations, and some of us were guarding those pits, waiting for the UN inspectors to come and catalog it all.
yeah,
So that would be moral injury, where you didn't do anything, you didn't shoot anybody, but you are witnessing the war crimes
right.
firsthand. I usually don't get quite so graphic about it, but
Yeah,
that was the environment. And yet the Canadian public looks at peacekeeping in a very different way. Oh, you're a peacekeeper. Why did you even have a rifle? Like, you're just, it's,
yeah,
you're in the middle of a war. You need a rifle and all the other weapons. And of course, the biggest battle since Korea was 1 year before I got there. It was the Battle of Medak Pocket. And it was a 4-day battle where zero Canadians were killed. A few were wounded, but zero were killed. And biggest battle since Korea. And most Canadians don't even know about it.
right. Yeah, yeah. It's sad. Yeah, there's Yeah, there's so much to unpack, and I just think back of even the last 2+ years within the foundation and the great men and women that I've been able to connect with, and to hear their stories, um, and learn more about them as a person. And a lot of the stuff, I have the benefit and the blessing, I guess, of having a wife, a very loving wife that also is a psychologist, right? And so she walks me through some of the stuff when I come home and say, hey, I had an interesting discussion with a veteran today, and obviously keeping confidentiality in place, but here's what he or she said, and here's what they're going through, or here's what they witnessed in the past. And so she's able to guide me, I guess, in what they're going through, and potentially what would be helpful and so forth, along with, and not that I do direct counseling or anything like that, but it helps me understand what's going on, maybe why they're acting out within our villages. The other thing that, you go back to what I've learned or what surprised me is, we have a homeless population, homeless veterans, and they may have been living on the street for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Um, they come to us, either through referral or they reach out. Somehow they're now under our care, and they move into one of our homes, and they're very thankful. Um, but in short order, not all of them, but in short order, all of a sudden they start acting out. I'm like, what's going on here? Like, a question. And so here I am talking to my wife and so forth. And she says, here's this person living in fight or flight 24/7. Where are they getting their next meal? They're living on the streets. Where are they getting the next meal? Are they going to be attacked tonight? Are they going to be threatened? Are they going to be stolen from? And so they don't have time to reflect or go to that quiet space where they can think about, why they're here, what's going on. So then all of a sudden you provide them that quiet space where they don't have to worry about their next meal, where they're sleeping tonight, whether they're going to be stabbed in the middle of the night. And they actually are able to sit in quiet space and reflect on their life or reflect on their challenges. And all of a sudden the demons, like to your point, start flooding in, right? Because they haven't had time for, while they're living on the streets, there is no time for that. And all of a sudden, the emotions start coming out. All of a sudden, they're acting up. And so it's like,
And I would
it
I
really,
would add to that, Brad, that
yeah,
we are the last. The veteran community is the most unlikely segment of society to reach out for help.
right.
Um, like if we're asking for help, we've hit bottom and been there for a
Yeah,
while.
yeah,
And actually accepting the help and receiving the help and being in one of these communities, there was going to be an adjustment period of letting the ego go and realizing, okay, I'm not the hero anymore. I am the person who's being rescued.
yeah,
That's a big pill to swallow. It
yeah,
it took me over 2 years
yeah,
to start to accept it. That, oh my
yeah.
gosh, I need help. I cannot do this on my own.
Yeah, and you're right, and especially as males too.
Yeah,
We are,
it's a
I
dude thing
often,
in general, but
oh, for sure.
veterans, especially combat arms veterans, oh
Yeah,
goodness,
it's a whole nother level. Yeah, I mean,
it's really difficult.
it's baked into our DNA as males
Yeah,
to not ask for help. We're the ones that are supposed to, save the situation, or, bring home the bacon, so to speak. And it's baked into our DNA from thousands of years ago. So then you add military service, combat veteran to that title as well. And you're right. That's why, the numbers in Canada, we can't nail down the numbers of how many homeless veterans there are, because they don't self-identify.
hmm
If they're living in a shelter, which they typically don't, but if they're in the shelter and they're doing a head count and they say, "Hey, any veterans?" Very few veterans will stick up their hand and admit that they're in that shelter out of, obviously pride, shame, all the emotions that run through. So yeah, you're 100% correct that it's a tough pill to swallow. Reaching out and asking for help. And you're right. If they're at rock bottom for sure.
yeah. There's a Winnie the Pooh meme. What's the hardest thing you've ever done? Ask for help.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the day I did it in 2017, it was £1,000 telephone.
Yeah.
It was something to get over that hurdle and just let go of the
Right.
pride. And because I needed that help, my family was falling apart again, and it was
Yeah.
all on me. But I couldn't see it the first time. This time I could see it,
Right.
and it's not easy. And there's one of the spots in the community where my show comes in, because you got to meet people where they're at.
Right.
And if the only form of help that somebody is willing to accept is to simply listen to Operation Tango Romeo, then great.
Yeah.
It's I hesitate, I choke on the words to say them, but it saved lives because
Yeah.
they tell me after the fact, quietly, privately, the odd ones publicly. But
Yeah.
it's usually a private conversation where it saved
Yeah.
the lives for two reasons. One, they knew that they're not alone, that they're not the only ones going through what they're going through. But
Yeah.
two is the hope, because the resources, not just resources, but the tools, the psychological tools, well, they're in the first 10 episodes. And the one that I get the most is, I think it's episode 5, talking about how to not wreck your camping trip, and explaining the fight flight mode, and how if you have a problem, kill it is baked into us.
Right.
And if you have a problem, kill it, if you don't realize that that's your operating mode, well, how do you fix it if you don't realize that's what you're doing? You just
Right.
think everybody else is the asshole. It's like, no, no, that's you on 10 all the time. And you just don't know that you're on 10. So you have absolutely no ability to realize, oh, this is not a normal reaction that's coming out of me. Like
Right.
this is an uncalled for, inappropriate anger outburst on
Yeah.
my part. Oh, I didn't know that. I thought everybody else was being an asshole, and they were making me do this like I'm a marionette. It's like,
Right.
no, no, other people, you're not a marionette. You're not a puppet. Somebody's arm isn't up your ass making your lips move.
Right.
That is not what's going on. This, you are reacting because your nervous system is still in life or death situation mode.
Yeah.
And once you realize that, then you can replace it, and you can
Right.
change it from if I have a problem, kill it, to realizing, oh, I'm on a mission. I'm on a life or death mission because I'm
Right.
setting up the tent, and I'm at a picnic with my family. My
Yeah.
body doesn't know the difference. It thinks that this is life or death. Oh, well, that's stupid. So let's have a
Yeah.
new mission parameter, the new mission scope, which is harmony. And once you do that and you switch to harmony, then as soon as the cheese starts sliding off the cracker, you can realize, oh, I'm off mission. Get back
Yeah.
on mission.
Right.
Harmony, memories,
Yeah.
having a good time, smiling and laughing. That's the mission.
Yeah.
And people have done that, and it has saved their family. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Simple tools like that.
Yeah, yeah, and the human body or psyche only has so much capacity, right? And so it fills up with what you have in the moment. And if it's all bad or a portion of it is bad, how do you get rid of the bad and replace it with good? But yeah, to your point, I think I've been blessed with, I guess, success in business and entrepreneurship for the last 40 plus years, and I've had great impact on people's lives and mentoring and so forth. But there's nothing greater that a human being, in my opinion, that a human being can have by way of success is when you've had positive impact on someone else's life, and in extreme cases actually save someone's life. I mean, who can actually say that out of the world's population? I can only imagine that it's less than 1% of 1% of the human population that can actually say that what they did in a moment or on a podcast or what I do at the foundation here actually saved a life. There's not too many. So nothing greater, in my opinion, that you can tout as success when you can say, you know what, I saved someone's life today, right? By just being there, being supportive, talking on a podcast, letting someone know that they're not alone. and giving them an option other than choosing suicide, and so forth. So it what gets me out of bed every day, to know that that day I may have that type of impact, and my caseworkers have that impact every single day, where they don't even know that they've had that impact until maybe later on, or maybe they'll never know, but they're interacting with those veterans every single day, giving them time, listening to them, giving them resources, supporting them, just being there. And so I know my caseworkers, my team, is saving lives on a daily basis. So no greater impact than that. So very happy to do what we
So
do.
tell me about your caseworkers. So this is specifically for the, what's the right word? For the people living for the villagers.
Yeah.
So for the villagers, if they have outstanding claims, or
Yeah.
is that what the caseworkers are doing, is looking
Yeah.
at their
So
Veterans
caseworkers,
Affairs claims?
in our world, caseworkers are caseworkers, social workers, psychologists. We have a wide variety of they're all classed as caseworkers in our foundation. But some of them are counselors, some of them are addiction counselors, psychologists, some of them are social workers. So yeah, their responsibilities on a daily basis range anything from obviously working with VAC, around claims, benefit claims, so forth, getting extra resources, working with local partner agencies, whether it's the food banks of the world, or local shelters, MFRC. So we work, with transition, obviously Canadian Armed Forces Transition Center. We get calls from them on a regular basis saying, "Hey, we have a member being discharged in the next 30 to 60 days. And the day they were discharged, they're homeless, right? They have no family." I speak of use an example of a young gentleman, in our care, no longer in our care, but was in our care. We got a call 60 days out from transition. This young gentleman grew up in foster care. So he's got no family, bounced around foster care, ended up in Canadian Armed Forces, served 4 years. Luckily, they called us and said, "Hey, the day this young man leaves, he's homeless. He has no family, no friends. Arguably was ostracized while he was in service, so he's got some mental health issues and so forth. You know, Thankfully, we're there." Took him right in, gave him the support that he needed. He was only under our care for maybe 8 months. He now lives about 2 blocks away from our village, gainfully employed, has a circle of friends. Like, he's in regular contact with us. That's another thing. Our care doesn't stop the day that our veteran graduates our program. They need our resources. We're always there for them. We work with a lot of veterans for months, if not years, after they've left our direct care. So yeah, no, there's lots of examples like that where our caseworkers go way beyond the call of duty, but they're there, 40, 50 hours a week, Monday through Friday, working with our veterans every single day. Super proud of our team of caseworkers, because they're in the trenches every single day. And a lot of our caseworkers come from military family. They have a husband or a grandfather or father that served, so it's near and dear to their heart. And hey, we're a charity, social service. We'd be thrown into the same sector as social service. You're not getting rich working in social services, right? So you better be in that position because you love what you do. And I truly believe that the people that work for our foundation love what they do. But yeah, they're not getting rich. The social service, sector doesn't, pay well, because typically it's nonprofit, and there's no money to go around. But man, they show up every single day and just kick ass.
I know that the Homes for Hero villages are temporary places, that they are meant to be transitionary, and to take somebody, stabilize them, give them some skills and some ability, and help them to move on and get back on their feet. So is there a time limit that somebody can be a villager? How does that work?
Yeah, so no, there's no time limit. Our goal, through research and the work we've done, our history with veterans, our goal is typically around 12 months. We feel that depending on each individual's journey, where they're at in their healing process, 12 months, sometimes less, sometimes it's just I just need a job. I literally lost my job. I've got nowhere to live. I just need to get gainfully employed. So sometimes that's 3, 4, 6 months. They build up a little nest egg and then they move back out into the real market and they're back on their feet. Sometimes we have more complex issues where it's mental health, it's addiction issues, PTSD, all the gambit of challenges that they could be faced with. We could be 24, maybe even 36 months under our care. Typically, though, 12 to 18 months is kind of, what we're shooting for. But if there's more time needed, then there's more time needed. We're here for them, and less or more doesn't matter to us. We're just there as long as they're involved in the program, right? We're a program first, housing second. So yeah, the house is a benefit of our program, but you have to be engaged. You can't just crawl away in your house. We're not a flop house. We're not just somewhere where you get to live cheap and not engage in the program, because we firmly believe at the foundation that if you're just providing housing, then you're not really solving the issue of why they were homeless to begin with, right? So we want to provide that safe, stable environment, because that allows or provides the environment that they can heal in. But we want to really solve the issue of why you were homeless or why you're struggling to begin with. And that means you have to be involved in the program. So, it's weekly check ins, you're having meetings with your caseworker. Is it about employment? We're setting up extra psychiatric care, counseling sessions, whatever you need to get back on your feet and get transitioned off back into civilian life successfully is what we're here for. But you have to, as a veteran, you have to be a part of the equation. We're not going to chase you, and if we have to chase you day in and day out, we're probably going to show you the door, because we've got veterans that want to be engaged in the program, want to do the better. But and again, it's not something I brag about, and it doesn't happen very often. But on occasion, if we've got veterans that are causing more problems than good, if they're not engaged in the program, then unfortunately we have to show them the door. The door will always be open to them to come back, but we show them the door. And when you're ready to come back and work the program and help yourself, then the door's open. But until that point,
One of the
you're gonna have to.
challenges, Brad, is that the system sucks.
Yeah,
Like at the OSI clinic, which is where I started, the operational stress injury clinic, for the audience, that is where Veterans Affairs sends you for mental health.
yeah,
And it's very limited on what those offerings are. And I don't think they get the best of the best all the time. Sometimes they get some real winners, but
yeah.
it's not always the best of the best. I didn't get the best of the best when I went, but you get what you get and you don't get upset. So I just accepted what whoever was assigned to me and stuck there for years. It did more harm than good. And that is not unusual. It is not uncommon for that to be the case. So a big part of this show is looking for the better mousetrap, because I know the system sucks and what's better out there. So as far as transitioning somebody from get them on their feet to do more than coping, and just being on meds is nothing more than coping. It's not healing. Healing makes room, or coping makes room for healing, but they are two different things. So having coping strategies that get you through the day, that's a starting point, not an end point. When you don't need those coping strategies, when you don't need the meds anymore, that's healing. And the system isn't set up for healing at all. It is set up to stabilize, get you on a regimen of pills, and hope for the best. 12 to 16% is the success rate of the self-reported numbers, and the numbers are the same in the United States. If they go into the system, 12 to 16% success rate. That's it. So what works better? And I'll share with you what I've found so that you know, as the president of Homes for Heroes, when it comes to mental health, the things that work the best aren't legal, like psychedelics. But there are legal psychedelics. Ketamine assisted therapy is one of them. If I had a magic wand, everybody with a PTSD diagnosis that comes to the village would have immediate access to two things. One is stellate ganglion block. So, stellate, are you familiar with that, Brad?
Very little. My wife, again, does a ton of research in psychedelics and so forth. So I don't know quite what you're talking about, but yeah, please.
Well, if there's a board committee or something about healing modalities, please let me at least speak to the board, you to let them know what I've found over the last 7 years. But stellate ganglion block, there's a couple of different versions of it, but it is basically anesthetizing the vagus nerve in your neck. There's single and dual sympathetic. So some of them only do one side, but that's only about 72% effective. So if you
Mhm.
wait 24 hours and do the other side later, that's very, very, very high for the efficacy rate, close to 100%. So really, really good. What that does is it relaxes the nervous system. Now that's a good starting point. It's not a permanent fix, but
Mhm.
it's a great starting point because now therapy can be uh, more impactful because you don't have the physical barriers up. Your nervous system isn't ramped up, so now you can actually do therapy and relax. So this will last between 3 months and a year, usually closer to a year. Some people are even saying if you get dual sympathetic, it's a permanent fix for resetting your nervous system. So it's good. It's a great place to start. But within 3 months, I would do, and this is all legal, right? Like anybody can get SGB if you have a doctor that'll prescribe it. After you get dual sympathetic stellate ganglion block, very shortly thereafter to engage in ketamine assisted therapy. And there are in Calgary and in Edmonton and in Red Deer, there are ketamine assisted therapy clinics. So ketamine is, to keep it simple, a psychedelic. It's a legal psychedelic that can be prescribed. That again helps lower the get rid of the ego because that's always a roadblock, and relax the nervous system. But that on top of the stellate ganglion block, it is fantastic. And then you can really get to the meat of it and actually heal.
Interesting.
And the overall, if you combine these two things, so an institution like the Newly that is ketamine assisted therapy over a long period of time is like a 6 week program or something like that. So if you have the Newly, but predicated by stellate ganglion block, magic. Your efficacy rate
Interesting.
is going to be, I'm going to say, over 80%,
Hmm.
and that's being very conservative.
Hmm.
You're going to have efficacy rate over 80%. And if you were to do that, the villagers, you're going to have no villagers over a year.
Interesting. I mean, we have a very high success rate of, again, you're talking at a whole new level for us. Obviously, we would not get directly involved, but we would guide them towards alternative solutions like what you're discussing. But we have an 87% success rate of graduating our vets from our villages onto independent civilian life.
That
Now,
is
that doesn't say
enormous. Like
it
that,
is off the charts.
Brad, that is so far and above and beyond. So what's the secret sauce there? Like before we get into
Yeah.
the full scope of what Homes for Heroes is now,
Yeah.
like how much can you share with me of what that process actually looks like? That is
Yeah.
has just unbelievable efficacy.
Yeah, I will say this one. I don't know if there's a secret sauce, other than care and compassion. We're experts with VAC. Obviously, we learn every day, and VAC works with us well.
Yeah, those
So, when
goalposts
it comes,
are always on the move.
yeah, we've tried to. I mean, I've appeared in front of Senate a couple times talking about the challenges of working with federal agencies and so forth. But typically our VAC contacts are there for the right reasons. They want to help. I think what gets in the way in a lot of cases is they sometimes get stuck reading from their policy manual instead of listening, with their heart regarding veterans care and so forth. But when it comes to us, I guess care and compassion, we're open minded. We look for new ideas, but we don't give up, right? I mean, and I alluded earlier that on occasion we have to show a veteran the door, right? Because they're not. But to get to that stage, I mean, you're talking oh, dozens of conversations where, okay, what are we missing here? You know, Mark, veteran. What are we missing? Why are you acting up? What's going through your mind? What's when you're doing what you're doing? Why have you all of a sudden you started using illicit drugs? You say you hadn't used drugs in 24 months. We believe you, and now all of a sudden you're on the end of a crack pipe. What's going on? So I think it's the long-term care and compassion. It's more of an attitude, I guess. If we're going to stick a label to it of what our secret sauce is or what the recipe is our care and compassion for success related to our veterans, right?
Well, you're also 100% of the time in a safe place. I
Yeah.
mean, people make fun of safe spaces nowadays and whatnot, and I get that because there's some pretty delicate people out there. But uh, everybody does need a safe space.
Sure.
For me, it's my home. We built one on a half acre. We
Yeah.
got a half acre of safe space here in a safe space community. And what is that? What does that actually mean? It just means that you're in a place where um, you're accepted,
Yeah.
where you're not being torn down or attacked verbally or physically, where you're comfortable and it feels like home, where you're
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah.
A place where you're welcome, or the old show Cheers, where everybody knows your name. Dooba dooba doo boo. That's a safe space, and
Yeah.
that's why pub culture exists. It's an unhealthy safe space
Yeah.
when it's centered around alcohol, but either way, you go where you feel familiar. That's why there's such a thing as a Chinatown, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
I want to be around other people that understand me. So there's a cultural competence thing. That's why there's Little Italy and Chinatown and
Yeah.
other chunks of cities that just naturally congeal to a certain a group of people,
Yeah.
and that's what the veterans villages can be as
Yeah.
well.
Well, and I think, and again, just to expand on what you're saying is it's an attitude. It's how we operate. It's our
Hmm.
culture. We don't clock in, clock out, right? Yes, my caseworkers are 40 to 50 hours a week, but they're a phone call away. I mean, we've been there on weekends, nights, held the hands of people that are contemplating suicide. We've stood in court as they face criminal charges. It's not our job. It's not in our necessarily our job description or what I expect, but our people show up every day, and it's tough. I'll be honest with you. I recognize very early, even reflecting on my own role and the involvement I have, is that in this sector, dealing with a vulnerable population, with the trauma that in a way a caseworker or even I've had I guess the opportunity to witness as you hear the stories, that impacts me personally too, right? I wear that when I go home. Yeah, I wasn't in Bosnia, I wasn't in the former Yugoslavia, but after you sit with a veteran after an hour or two of he or she describing what they went through, I wear that. Now I've got, some form of trauma because I just spent 2 hours with a person that just told me a story. And so I recognized very early that everybody within our organization has an expiry date. And not because they don't care, it's because at some point they're going to wave the white flag and say, I don't have the capacity anymore. I'm spent. And that might be me someday. I recognize that. So we're very nurturing with our team as well, too. You need time off. You had a bad day. we've had situations where, and it's sad, and, where we've had to do a welfare check because we haven't heard from a veteran in 24 hours, and we know that they were at risk. Now, died of natural causes, but that's traumatic in itself, for a caseworker, a young caseworker, to open up the door to a home and find a dead body, right? And what does that look like? And then I'm very paternal with my team, so I wear that now. So now I'm trying to give support to my team members. So it all wears on us day
Hmm.
in and day out. And so
That's why
I think,
for the show, I don't overdo it. It took me a few years to find that the frequency that I can work with, but I
yeah,
don't book too many shows.
yeah,
I'm careful about it,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I don't often get into the war porn, like the stories that would have been told to you.
right,
I try to avoid those because
yeah.
with some of the guys that get together, they remind me of some of the things that I know. It's like I did not need to remember that.
Right. Yeah, and we're there trying to build relationships and build that trust. So when they open up and are prepared to talk about their history, and sometimes it's not even to do with their time in service. Sometimes it's childhood trauma, right? It's post service trauma, totally unrelated to their service. Now, service exacerbates or exaggerates trauma in a lot of cases too, but you're at that state where you're trying to make that connection with that veteran, and then all of a sudden the floodgates open. You
Well, I
can't
don't know if you're
unhear.
familiar, Brad, but those that serve tend to have higher ACEs scores. So ACEs
Mhm.
is adverse childhood events, childhood trauma, and it's scored.
Yeah.
People that enter trauma-rich environments as a profession tend to have higher ACEs scores, and there's a direct correlation that has been illustrated by American numbers that the higher your ACEs score, it makes it pretty predictable which trades that you're going to choose. And infantry is has the highest ACEs scores, except for special forces. If people go all the way to special forces, higher ACEs scores again.
Right.
There's something about it where the upside is the toughness, I guess.
Yeah.
But I'm certainly one of those examples of somebody with ridiculous ACEs scores that
Mhm.
ended up in the infantry. Although what I really wanted to do was be a medic, but that's another story.
Well, at least you wanted to give and
Yeah,
and
well,
serve.
either
That's
way.
good. Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. So yeah, I mean, again, recipe: be kind, be compassionate, show up every day, and follow through with what you've committed to that particular veteran on that particular topic on that particular day.
So let's talk scope. When Dave and I first talked about it, Homes for Heroes was just a little bit more than an idea. It was a goal, but there was no shovels in the ground yet. They had literally not broken ground the first time I had Dave Howard on the show to talk about Homes for Heroes. Where is it today? How many
Wow.
villages? How big are these villages?
Yeah, yeah. First village, obviously, 2019 here in Calgary, and again, when I talked to Dave and talked about what drove this and what was your thought, I mean, they were literally trying to solve a local issue, a Calgary issue. Um, you know, yeah, maybe dreams of bigger, but really in the moment, it was solving an issue right here in Calgary. But it took off like wildfire with great success, and then of course, municipalities started reaching out. Could you come? Could you build here? So Calgary, Edmonton in 2021, Kingston, Ontario in 2024. We start construction this year in Winnipeg and London, Ontario. We're currently in discussions with multiple cities in British Columbia, East Coast, Halifax, St. John's, Quebec, Ottawa, Greater Toronto Area, Hamilton. So coast to coast. I can see, us building another. Well, the two this year will be open late this summer. Probably another 4 villages built in the next 24 months at the pace we're going. If we can continue to get support from all 3 levels of government and our private sector donors, the sky's the limit. But yeah, I think we'll be coast to coast in most major centers that need us or need our service within the next 48, maybe 60 months. So 5 years. And then we'll see where we go from there. But yeah, super proud of the work we do. And obviously the success rate that I mentioned earlier, man, in the social service sector, if you're getting 30 or 40% success rate, you're a rock star. We're at 87%. So
Unbelievable.
yeah, again, I wish I could say, here's the three things you need to do to have an 87% success rate. I don't know what it is. We just show up every day at the end of the day and have a great culture, a great support system for not only our veterans, but our team. And it seems to be working. And so don't fix what isn't broken, but we're also open to learn. We learn every day. I got to tell you, there's days where you might think you know it all. And I've seen it all, I know it all. And then you get slapped in the face very quickly and say, oh, yeah, I don't know anything actually. So,
Well,
yeah, every day is a
that's a
learning
perfect
event.
segue. I've just been thinking, like, should I do this as a statement or do it as a question? So you just gave me a perfect segue. I'll give you a pop quiz.
Okay.
Is addiction a symptom or a cause?
Ooh, ooh. Depends on how you use it. I what I witness symptom.
Yes.
And again,
A symptom
keep
of
in mind,
what, Brad?
I'm only talking about what I am exposed
Don't
to.
worry. I'm not expecting you to have a PhD. I don't have one either.
Yeah,
But or maybe you do in something else. But um, so you're right. Addiction is a symptom, not a cause. But although it's a symptom that compounds other things. But what is it as a symptom of?
well, there's so. I mean,
There's only one thing.
really.
Hmm.
Okay, so I would immediately gravitate towards trauma.
Hmm.
That would be my immediate. If you're going to ask me one thing, I would say
So,
trauma.
and that's exactly what it is. Everything is a symptom of unresolved trauma, which is why psychedelics are so unbelievable. When you incorporate psychedelics, which you could do today, and again, I could sit with your medical board and lay out what's available to you in Calgary anyway, right now. And there's something else I'm working on that after I vet it a little bit more, I'll be introducing to you as well. But with psychedelics, it resolves the trauma, and all the psychedelics do that, regardless of which one. Doesn't matter. They all resolve trauma, and addiction just goes away. It just it's just gone.
Right.
One of the most shocking ones is ibogaine, and a lot of people aren't familiar with it yet. But it's now legal to treat veterans with ibogaine in Texas, and it's going across the states now.
Mm,
Ibogaine is the big daddy, the granddaddy of all the psychedelics. You need medical supervision when taking it, or should have. But like all psychedelics, it's non-toxic and not
mm,
addictive. Like
right.
nobody does ibogaine for fun. It's not a party drug. The exact opposite. But under guidance and supervision, um, ibogaine even gets rid of withdrawal symptoms. Like
Mm,
there, it does some magical thing in your brain where there isn't even withdrawal, whether you're a wicked crack addict or heroin, opiates, doesn't matter. No withdrawal, gone,
right.
bye bye.
Yeah.
So the psychedelics, and there's tons of science, like study after study after study, showing ridiculous efficacy. So if I had a magic wand, I would have at every village, Homes for Heroes village, access to ibogaine. Now that's not possible yet,
Yeah.
but ketamine assisted therapy is today accessible, and stellate ganglion block is today accessible. If though that is the center point of the healing, addiction just goes away. There is no
Right.
addiction.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'll say this: addiction within our villages is, and just for clarity, we don't take veterans in active addiction.
Hmm.
We will take a veteran who has just come out of detox or rehab, but we don't take veterans because we're not equipped for active addiction. Plus, we've got 20 or 24 other veterans that are possibly in a different part of their journey around addiction. They don't need active addiction, in their next door neighbor.
Yeah,
That being
and
said,
addiction rehab centers have incredibly low efficacy rate. I haven't found
right,
one yet. I'm sure there's a good one out there, and I'm sorry, I'm not painting you all with the same brush,
yeah,
but most of them
yeah.
very, 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 very low success rates.
I will say our lowest success rate is alcoholism.
Yeah, that's tough.
If we have a veteran with alcoholism, it is the toughest success. Those are the ones that end up failing, and I don't want to say failing as in there's a passing grade, but don't typically succeed within our program because they just can't get out from underneath
Yeah.
alcoholism. It is one of the toughest ones we deal with on a daily basis.
And again, psychedelics would fix that right up. It's how I quit.
Interesting.
I was even just microdosing on psilocybin, and I could just see it. I could just see what the truth of alcohol, both in my own life and the world. And I went, well, that's dumb.
Yeah.
That is not my friend.
Yeah,
And
I watched a documentary on Abigail and how it was being
ibogaine, yeah,
Abigail, sorry, in Mexico, across
yes,
the border,
yeah.
right? And so it was interesting because they were dealing with Navy SEALs and U.S. Special Forces and so forth. And so it was an amazing video to watch. And I'm going, okay, so, and I know it's FDA level and so forth that they're talking about making it legal and so forth, but it'll be interesting where it goes. A question for you, cannabis. I would love to take 2 minutes and talk about cannabis, but where do you stand on cannabis use?
Undecided. Um, I'm on it now. I have a VAC prescription, so in gummy form, I take it in the evenings, and I
Mhm.
sleep great.
Right.
Um, I am cautious about it though,
Mhm.
um, and I haven't had a cannabis expert on in a while. My provider is Avail, and
Mhm.
I'd like to get somebody on there and ask a bunch of questions.
Right.
But is it a coping mechanism or a healing mechanism? I'm going to say that cannabis is a good coping mechanism, and if you're using it to deal with anxiety, it beats the hell out of SSRIs. So I would say that.
Mhm.
And there's actually no clinical data showing long-term efficacy of SSRIs beyond the placebo effect. It doesn't
Right.
exist. It's always been a scam. It it just always has been.
Yeah.
Cannabis, on the other hand, it works and it helps. But if you're always on it, then you're not healing.
Well, and I guess, and again, only from my vantage point, I'm not a cannabis user, but that doesn't mean that I don't support cannabis use in the right circumstances for the right reasons.
Yeah.
But what I've seen or witnessed within our realm, I guess, is I don't want to say unethical, but the carte blanche just rollout of cannabis. And of course, VAC, the Canadian taxpayer, funds veteran cannabis use. And I see, what I've witnessed is use you as an example. I hear that story of where, yeah, I use a gummy and blah, blah, it helps me cope a little bit, gives me better sleep and so forth. I'm like, okay, good. Check the box. Responsible use for the right reasons. Perfect. Then I see the non cannabis user that is literally by peer pressure or by the cannabis retailers pushed into, oh, you should be using cannabis. Oh, I've never used cannabis. Oh no, you need to use cannabis. And all of a sudden they're using cannabis, and all of a sudden they're a pothead. Now they're, because of the grams that are available, now all of a sudden they're stoned 24/7. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not helpful. And did they even need it to begin with?
Well, what's it?
And then,
What are the choices though? Like, if the choices is
yeah,
that or SSRIs, well, take the
yeah,
cannabis.
sure,
You know,
yeah,
like when you look at the on-label side effects of SSRIs, up to and including suicide and murder as a side effect. Murder is a side effect. Yeah.
yeah,
The SSRIs can really cook you. and
Yeah.
they're not good. I've
Yeah.
talked to people that have, oh, they work great for me. I'm like, well, that's great. That but it should be a short term thing. It shouldn't
Right.
be long term. And benzodiazepines, never mind. Like, no, just no. That's bad news.
Yeah.
Those are emergency measures types of
Yeah.
things, like emergency measures for like a week or two,
Yeah.
not for years to be on
Yeah.
benzos. Like, not good.
I think the challenge that I see again is I also in my private sector years had medical clinic, walk-in family practice, managed practice, and so forth, and had exposure to big pharma, right, and their drug pushing thought process, and we've all heard those stories, and they've made movies about it. What I see is there's an inherent conflict of interest around veteran cannabis use being funded by the federal government. And again, I'm not taking away from cannabis use if it's rolled out responsibly for the right reasons. But what I see here is cannabis retailers, cannabis producers um, get paid via the federal government at ridiculous prices on a per gram, piece. They're getting, double in some cases what it's actually worth in a regular store on the street. Um, but they're pushing their drugs constantly. It's an inherent conflict of interest. They have their own in-house doctors who are inherently in conflict because they're being paid to prescribe cannabis at higher quantities that their employer will now benefit from through more sales and more revenue.
I don't
So
see a
it,
difference between that and psychiatric drugs.
I guess is psychiatric drugs rolled out more responsibly, and maybe I
No,
don't have that answer necessarily.
definitely
So
not. Yeah,
okay, so
because
I'm
at the
yeah,
OSI clinic, you meet with
yeah,
both the psychiatrists and the psychologists,
sure,
and so I don't know how many years was I there, 5 years maybe. And so you go meet the psychiatrist to see if meds is an option, which I tried 3 different times and
mhm,
horrible effects 3 out of
yeah,
3 times. So I just said no. This is
yeah,
I'm going to listen to
right,
my body on this one, and that's just a
yeah,
hard no. But
yeah.
I don't see a difference.
Yeah. And so
Um,
so you bring up a really good point is so whether it's cannabis or psychiatric drugs or just weight loss drugs at the end of the day,
yeah.
is there an inherent conflict of interest, I guess, at the end of the day?
Well, there definitely is with psychiatric drugs and no science.
Right.
There's no science for any, like, if you read the book Lost Connections by Johann Hari, that's basically starts off with the story of psychiatric drugs and where they came from and the absence of science to back them up. It's not good. Like, can
Right.
they help you? Well, I don't know. I don't think so, but they can kill you. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
been
It's a real
shown.
flip of the coin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't know if it can help you or not, but it could definitely kill you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whereas with cannabis, and I'm not a huge cannabis fan, but
Mhm.
I think about people. I'm certainly allowed to use your names, like Rob Lalonde,
Mhm.
who is my size. He's like 5'9", and he was up to 350 pounds, taking prescribed drugs as prescribed. Well, he
Mhm.
got off of all of that, and he uses cannabis. Could you call him a pothead? Probably, but so what? Like,
Yeah.
okay, so you got this label, but now he's under 200 pounds and
Right.
fit as hell.
Yeah.
He's not 350.
Yeah.
That's amazing to me.
Right. And arguably potentially life saving
Oh
because
yeah,
he was obese,
yeah,
right? And so yeah, so there's a perfect example of what works. My challenge is I've got one vet I'm thinking of in particular that I've sat with, and I said, "Well, what's your goals?" He said, "I just want to get back to work. I want to work. I want to work with my hands." He's got skills and so on and so forth. He came in as a non-cannabis user, not a whole lot of mental health issues. He just needed to get back to work. He wanted to, get out in the real world, rent his own apartment, so on and so forth. Now he's a 24/7 pothead. And I'm like, veteran, won't use his name. So how are you thinking you're going to get back to work when you're basically stoned 24/7?
Yeah.
How are you going to go to that job interview that I set up for you if you're stoned 24/7? And this guy never used cannabis in his life. And arguably, I'm not going to judge, maybe didn't even have a reason to use cannabis, but now is basically a pothead because once a month his package shows up with all the free cannabis you could use. And what he doesn't use, he sells.
Hmm.
So he's also a drug dealer on the side
Yeah.
because and so I'm like, that's an example of where it's not working. Your example is an example of what's working. And is there a happy medium in the place or a better way we can roll this out, whether it's prescription psychiatric drugs or cannabis, whatever the solution is? I don't know. I just know that there's a lot of negative fallout from cannabis use too,
And
that
again,
no
this
one's paying attention
the
to.
solution is the same, which is psychedelic medicine.
Yeah,
You know,
maybe it is. Yeah,
that it gives you the same solution for that issue as well. Because I agree, Brad. I have seen tremendous cannabis use, and I'm conscious of that because I don't want that to be me any more than I want to be an alcoholic.
right.
I was up to about 6 drinks a night in the beginning of COVID. It snuck up on a guy like in a hurry. And all of a sudden I'm at half a dozen drinks a night. I'm like, whoa, what
Not
a,
a good thing.
like that happened in like 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Went,
Wow.
went from one or two a night, and then it just, well, a little more. And before I know it, I was up to half a dozen a night.
Yeah.
And now it'll be 6 years this April that I haven't touched a drop.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Yeah.
So what was the aha moment where you said, "Whoa, I'm
Mushrooms,
done"?
magic mushrooms. They just showed me.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they got a real knack of doing that.
Yeah.
Basically, what the mushrooms showed me, and I know it's if you've never done them, it's just difficult to like. What do you mean they showed you? It's a frickin' mushroom. It's like,
Right.
yeah, I know it's tough to describe, but they did. They gently and kindly showed me. Okay, Mark, you live in a place of shame where you cringe about things that you've said or done. Now let's cross reference every one of those moments of shame where you're cringing about what you said or you did. Did you have a couple of drinky poos in you? He's like, yeah, I had a couple of drinky poos. And yeah, well, there you go, dum dum. Yeah, there's no getting away from that.
Yeah.
And then it showed me on a bigger scale the lie of alcohol. How it's like,
Mm.
well, it's a party, and you have to have alcohol to party to be sociable. It's boring if you
Right.
don't.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's not. And the reason that alcohol can be so much fun is because it gets rid of your inhibitions. Well, I have
Right.
so much brain damage from so many concussions and blast injuries. I don't have inhibitions uh, in the first place,
Right.
right? They just ain't there. Um, and I can give you 1,000 stories to prove that I don't have any.
Right.
Uh, so adding alcohol reduces then I can't even gauge if this is a lack of judgment anymore. Just,
Right.
instant idiot, just add alcohol.
Right.
So then I get extra stupid. So
Right.
I don't need a lack of inhibitions. It doesn't
Yeah.
work for me. And
Mm. Okay.
and if you need alcohol to get rid of your inhibitions and have a good time, maybe figure out why you have those inhibitions in the first place. Like to me, that's
Right.
just a signal that you got some work to do. And
So
I'm not,
what was?
but but
Sorry. Go ahead.
but it just showed me that alcohol has a price, even in small quantities. It has a price. It's a lie. You don't need it. It doesn't make your life better or more fun. That is all a lie. Because when you
Mm.
zoom out far enough, you're gonna see the price tag.
Right.
Whether it
That's
be physically, spiritually, socially, um, uh, re- eh, and even if you can't see the price tag, you at least understand that it's a Damocles sword always over your head. That today's the day that you had one too many and you got behind the wheel,
right.
and you thought you could get away with it, and now your life is over and you've lost your license.
Right.
I
Right.
never have to worry
Interesting.
about that.
Yeah, and I'm a non-drinker and have been for years, not because I had an issue with it, but I recognized very early on in life, in my teenage years, that it was never going to be one beer ever. I'm a, and that's my,
Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
my mo is it's all or none, and that means I go big or go home. Everything in my life. So if I'm working out, I'm working out every day of the week.
Yeah.
If I'm not working out, I'm not working out at all. If I'm drinking, if I was to drink, it would be never one beer, right? And so for me, it was just recognized very early. So I'm very lucky, I guess. My wife loves it because she's got a built-in designated driver, and it works out real well for our life together. And so, yeah, no, it's interesting. So the canvassing, obviously, I'm open-minded. So let me ask, what is the pushback around legalizing psychedelics? What your thoughts are? What are they saying? Why are we holding on to not legalizing them at this point? What's your thoughts there?
So I'll be kind and
Okay.
say that it's mostly a lack of education.
Okay.
That's the kind version.
Okay.
The unkind version is corruption. Um,
Okay.
Nobody wants anything actually fixed. That's the entire medical industry, both psychologically, psychiatrically, and
Mm.
and everything else. You know, that's the dark version. They don't want it
Right.
fixed. There's
Yeah.
way too much money in treatment. Why
Yeah.
would they want it fixed? They don't want efficacy. They want
Right.
customers. So
Right.
that would be my my truthful answer.
Yeah.
Um,
And am I assuming that psychedelics, as a general, I mean, they're all natural typically, right? They're plant based. Are there synthetic ones? Like,
yeah, well, LSD is and MDMA are very useful. You know,
yeah,
they're
but cheap to produce. I'm assuming,
and
right?
cheap. They are cheap. They are
Yeah.
useful, but have to be used with intent. A lot of
Mm.
times with supervision, but intent seems to be like I'm not what do you call him, a shaman, you know. So I don't know how to work with somebody properly. I haven't been trained of how to be the facilitator for a psychedelic retreat, and I
Mhm.
haven't been on one. I've any of the psilocybin, I've been able to procure it myself, and I just set a day aside and I eat some mushrooms.
Yeah.
Um, but without proper intent and guidance, like you don't get as much out of it as you could.
Right.
But
Okay.
psilocybin, even LSD, MDMA, they've all been used. Some are chemicals and some of them are not. But the thing that they all have in common is that they're non addictive, like all the plant based ones are non
Yeah.
addictive. Like you couldn't get addicted if you tried. Like you just couldn't. Like nobody's doing mushrooms every damn day.
Yeah.
There's just no way.
Well,
And
you're not making a very good business model when you say non-addictive, because
yeah,
that's not
exactly.
reoccurring revenue is the problem, right?
And ibogaine is almost always a one and done. Uh, so the psychedelic I'm not so sure about is ayahuasca. It's very popular, but
Okay.
my thing about ayahuasca is very simple. I have met people that have done it 30, 40 times. So if it has such great efficacy, why are you going back 30 or 40 times?
Right.
You know, um, that doesn't that doesn't jive with me.
Right.
The math on that doesn't work. Whereas you go to ketamine assisted therapy or my personal favorite, which I have not tried. I haven't tried either of those. But from everything that I've talked to, all the people I've talked to, and everything that I've read, ibogaine is the answer. It's the best answer we have so far, anyway. So
Mhm.
I'm working on something with a guy out of Medicine Hat, Ernie Woders. And I'm going to actually go to his place for 3 days. He has some program that he's come up with from an engineering perspective that is supposed to have super duper high efficacy. That it has nothing to do with psychedelics, but it gets there the same way. Like the same gentle, well, somewhat gentle way. It depends on the personal experience, but the same angle that psychedelics takes to get the job done, he's able to do from an engineering perspective. And so he also testified, like you did at the Standing Committee at Veterans Affairs, and so did I.
Mhm.
I'm going to give it a whirl and and have a look. And if I agree, and if it jives with everything that I've learned up to this point, I'm going to introduce him to you guys. I'm going to introduce him to the Veterans Association,
Sure.
and because if you can get the same result without the drugs, Yahoo! Like who's going to tell you that
Yeah.
you can't? Another
Right.
organization that I did get certified is 220. So 220 is out of the States, and it is trying to get to the 22 suicides a day, which is more like 40, down
Yeah.
to zero. And it uses a form of neuro linguistic programming. So I had hit and miss results with it, but they have the data points, um, and I personally know people that have benefited greatly. You don't have to relive the trauma. You don't have to
Mhm.
go back to that place and relive it in technicolor like you do with so many other therapies like ART.
Yeah.
Um, so you don't get re-traumatized. You revisit those instances in a very, very safe, detached way, and so that you're not activated or triggered in any way.
Right.
And only when you're in that non-triggered, deactivated state um, does it get flipped, and you're released. You're able to let it go, which is also how psychedelics work, because they put in front of you and then reassociate it. Like just it just happens
Wow.
through the medicine where this no longer triggers you. You're aware of it. It's not like you forgot about it or you've replaced it with some BS memory. No, you still
Mhm.
remember. You just don't care anymore. Like
Right.
you're able to
Right.
let it go, and then it lets you go. It's a two-way street. It's got to
Yeah.
let you go, and you got to let it go.
Yeah. My wife uses, and I'm sure you've heard the technique EMDR, right?
It's one of the better
With
ones.
it's one of the better ones, and she's certified in it. And but she often will say, "Hey, yeah, I had an EMDR session today that went a little too far." Right, like because it's hard to gauge how, and all of a sudden you went looking for one trauma and found five others,
Mm-hmm.
right, and then all of a sudden you opened up some wounds that weren't even there, right, and or visible, I guess. And so yeah, it's an art form too, as well as how far do you go, how deep do you go, and the risks you run. Now, it's not harmful that you can't undo it or bring him back to a safe place, but she's told me lots of times where it was a tough or a rough EMDR session where it opened up because you're reliving it, right? You take me back to that moment in time type of scenario where you're describing it doesn't do that, right?
Yeah,
So
and
that's
that's
interesting.
why it works. I did ART, which is not dissimilar to EMDR, but
Right.
I was back there, man. And
Yeah.
just the example, like the story I tell all the time. So it's I hit a tripwire, and I'm the only guy that I know that hit a tripwire and didn't die, or at least get ripped to shreds.
Yeah.
And like that's a very rare event that you hit a tripwire anyway. But I hit one in the most heavily mined area in the world at the time, and we'd already had friends that had died from landmines, and one guy that lost both of his legs at this time, and all kinds of other injuries, blast injuries from. And here I am. I actually hit a tripwire, goes right across my shin while I'm at a full jog, and yet here I am. I lived. But while we were using ART, I relived it in Technicolor. I mean, I could feel the temperature, the weight of my flak vest, the gravel under my boots, the weight of the rifle in my hand. I mean, I relived it
Yeah.
again and again and again. We spent about 18 hours in that place. And that wasn't good. My symptoms got so much worse,
Right.
so much worse. Um, the interesting part of that, though, is that it started unpacking all the things that were associated with it. Because it wasn't just hitting the tripwire, it was me feeling like a freaking idiot and being
Mm.
embarrassed that I'm now in this position. Like, why did I do this? Why did I do that? Why has it got to be me? And being the idiots, like, well, now I'm going to die. Great. Die out for my stupidity. Like all these emotions that were attached to the event that we also had to unpack, which was interesting. But at the end of the day, it did so much more harm than good. The
Right.
therapy through reliving everything, and put
Right.
me on a downhill spiral for sure. But
Exactly.
there is a better way, and psychedelics is one of those ways. I'm going to see if Ernie Wouters has a better way. He very well might. From our conversation together, I am hopeful that he does. So I'm going to go and figure that out. And neurolinguistic programming is certainly a good way as well. So
Hmm.
those are the ones that I've discovered.
Nice. Well, I look forward to hearing more about that because, yeah, I mean, we're learning every day, obviously, and we want to guide our veterans the best way we know how. We've got a handful of tools and resources today, but wouldn't it be nice if we had another tool in the tool chest that we could provide our veterans, whether they're under our care or not, just in general? And there's lots of work to be done for sure.
Well, I would love to see you adopt stellate ganglion block followed by ketamine assisted therapy. You do that
Okay.
simple thing in that order. It has to be in that order.
Yeah.
And so the guy to talk to about that, the only guy that does it the way that I think it should be done is out of Chicago, Eugene Lipov. I knew it would come to me. So Dr. Eugene Lipov, I've had him on the show. You can listen to that show if you like. Dr. Eugene Lipov out of Chicago. He's the only one that I have been able to find that does dual sympathetic. So he does both sides of the vagus nerve,
Hmm.
followed by ketamine assisted therapy. And the
Okay.
results have been great. But there's members of JTF2, our Special Forces Tier 1 unit, that out of pocket, they fly to Chicago for this therapy. And
Right.
a lot of them have done it. And I I think it's a panacea? No, but I think it's the best that we have that I'm aware of right now that we also
Right.
have access to because you can get there's no barriers to SGB. There's no
Right.
barriers to it. You can just get it done. There's not a big pushback for that. And the ketamine assisted therapy is legal and accessible, especially in Calgary right now. There's more than one clinic. So,
Yeah. Fantastic.
and the Newly is one of them. If you were to incorporate that, your success rate would even get better, and the amount of time that people would be in the village would be less. So you can rotate more people through it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And again, I'm, again, with my private sector background, I'm all about return on investment too,
Yeah.
right? The more veterans we can serve, and I don't want to make it sound like we're a turnstile. That's not our goal here, but it actually comes down to if we've got the last reports are over 10,000 homeless veterans in Canada living on the streets. The more I turn veterans through our program successfully, the quicker I can get onto that next veteran. So if this can speed up the time that they're in the village and
It
lessen
would,
the amount of time.
and it's covered by Veterans Affairs, which is nice. So if you got a
Yeah,
K number for
yeah,
PTSD, you can receive. Now it's not automatic, and there's a bureaucratic bullshit you'll have to deal with.
yeah,
But if you have your K number, then you can have Veterans Affairs cover it for
right.
the ketamine assisted therapy. But yeah,
Okay,
man, you go in that direction, and it's going to be wonderful.
okay. And see, learn something new every day.
There you go. It's what we're here for.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, brother. Well, I think we're there. The last question is roughly how many, what is your veteran capacity at this moment? Like we talked about a lot of different villages. There's like what, 5 villages that are up and running right now? What are we at? And how many veterans are
3 up and running right now,
three up
2
and running?
under construction. Yeah, two more. We'll be at 5 by the year end. So yeah, currently our capacity, we have 55 doors currently in Calgary, Edmonton, Kingston total. And then depending on the time of stay and so forth. So we, again, there's days where we have a waiting list in a particular city. And then 2 weeks later, we've got 2 spots open vacant because we'll have graduating vets, right? So 55 capacity right now. By year end, we'll have another 50 because the 2 villages we're building are both 25 home setups. So we'll be, well over 100, which is fantastic. And yeah, we just keep turning our veterans through our program. And like I said, some are 6 months, some are 24 months. And but we're doing what we do, and we're super proud of the work and our success rate. It's something we can hang our hat on. We wish we were 100%. Is it possible? Yeah, maybe, but 87%, pretty happy with that outcome, and we're just happy to be doing what we're doing.
Well, I hope every house within every village has a listening station for Operation Tango Romeo. That'll help.
We'll make sure we'll put the word out. You get the link set, and I'll send it out to all the villages, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Perfect. Brad, thank you so much. And
thanks for having me, Mark. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. And
right,
please stay on the line.
Yeah.
You're listening to Operation Tango Romeo, the trauma recovery podcast for veterans, first responders, and their families. If you see the value in what you just heard, please help us out. Share like the sugar bear, because sharing is caring. When you share, it helps other people find this resource and find this particular episode, so they know that help is out there. Most people don't know. They don't know what help is available to them or how to get to it. So share the show. Share like the sugar bear. Thanks, sir.